Now, instead of bicep curling as such, where we aren't really using much shoulder flexion and thus limiting motor unit recruitment within the very tail end of the curl, you should try to curl like this, where we are now utilizing the entire range of motion to activate those motor units that we were originally missing out on.
So that's not true. And when we actually look at doing a bicep curl with simultaneous elbow flexion versus using a fixed, stable shoulder position and fixed humerus position, what we see is the shoulder flexion actually leads to a decrease in recruitment of the biceps. And that's because the biceps are not very good shoulder flexors to begin with, and the flexion that they do is not in the sagittal plane, not that elbows going forward plane. You have two heads of the biceps, and their degree of shoulder flexion is more nuanced than that. The other thing is that as you bring the elbows forward, the weight is starting to stack over top, so you're actually taking the resistance off of the elbow flexors and exclusively putting it on the shoulder flexors, which in this case would be the anterior delts. So what we see when we do this is that bicep recruitment goes down and delt recruitment goes up. So if you want to get the most out of your bicep curls, use a fixed shoulder position. You can use varying positions, but keep that fixed during the motion.
I already told Ryan that I've been making some of these videos, kind of critiquing some of the content that he's put out, knowing that some of that is inspired by some of the stuff that we've done. Not all of it, of course, but one of my critiques is the use of the motor units, and saying that they're being recruited more or less and stuff in places that are either incorrect or out of context, etc. It's very important that if you're going to throw around terms like that or pretend that there's data on that stuff, that it needs to match what's actually out there, or it discredits the actual data or the people that are actually utilizing that data to try and support their work, like what we're doing. So, for this example, for elbow flexion, and shoulder flexion in the sagittal plane, if we're looking at biceps, you actually get less bicep recruitment. Like the motor unit recruitment goes down when you add in that sagittal shoulder flexion, not up. So this post is completely backwards of the reality. And if we look at the mechanics, the biceps are not shoulder flexors in the sagittal plane. Anyway, they have different, more complex, nuanced levels of flexion that are not outside of the sagittal plane. So I'm going to ask that, if you guys are going to throw out these big words or, don't make it seem like there's data that isn't. And if you're going to talk about the data, you better really know what that data means. Otherwise, it destroys the credibility and it makes it harder for people to navigate the information in this industry.